Hello and welcome to One on One. I am Cyril Stover. It's inevitable that at some point natural disasters or other forms of emergency situations will occur. Human activities have made this even more so. The management and mitigation of natural or man-made disasters must therefore be important in the development of society. My guest today can rightly be described as an expert in such matters. He is a medical doctor with a deep understanding of emergency and management of disasters. He was at various times senior medical officer and head of operations for all ambulance service activities, providing medical and first aid attention to patients of emergencies and disasters in Lagos State. General Manager, CEO of Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, Director, Lagos State Accident and Emergency Bureau, and numerous other appointments. He is a member of many professional bodies, among them Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria, member International Disaster Managers, member Emergency Planner UK, and currently he is Senior Technical Advisor on Disaster Risk Management at the Presidency and Head Task Force ECOWAS Early Warning and Response Mechanism in Nigeria. Let's welcome Dr. OLUFEMI OKE-OSANYINTOLU. Thanks for being here on One on One.
Good morning.
Right, ordinarily, people would say we don't pray for disasters. Well, as you know, they say Nigeria is a praying country. No one hopes that a disaster or an emergency situation will occur, but it's part of everyday life, isn't it?
It is. It is. We have to plan. We have to prepare so that our response could be effective and efficient. It's part of day-to-day activities. But the key thing in there, as a Boy Scout, we must be well prepared for it.
All right. And that's the big question many people will ask today. You find that there are so many societies that are not adequately prepared for what might happen, be it natural or man-made. How do you score Nigeria in these matters, generally?
Well, you see, we are coming up. We have a lot of machinery in place, and if you look at it holistically, this government is building the resilience from the grassroots to top, which means from the bottom to the top level, because we realize and now we appreciate that the impact of any disaster is to the grassroots, and we are trying to build the resilience of the communities from the grassroots to top.
Well, it's been said that we're lucky so far and in this part of the world. We're not faced with too many natural disasters. Of course, we've heard of times where tornadoes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, they live with these. And here, perhaps what we have witnessed so far is at a smaller scale, except for now when people are beginning to see some, activity in the crust of the earth, which people might say are pointers to the fact that we might at some point in time be faced with things like earthquakes. But you think that is why all along, all these years, we've been a little bit laid back?
Well, you can say that we should thank God that what we experience in terms of natural disaster in our country is minimal compared to other countries. But you see, the key factors, the major factors that we are having challenges on is the orientation of our people, the behavioral attitude of our people. Because you see, when we are talking about disaster itself, if you look at the causes of disaster, it gives you early warning. There's what we call signs and symptoms that it's always give you. But if you are able to grab the signs and the symptoms, the hazard itself will not turn to this disaster. And whenever you have the disaster, the mortality and the mobility that will be associated with it will be greatly reduced.
Okay.
And today the government is now working hand in hand with people to fine-tune, to change their orientation to all this.
Now, one of the things that Nigeria faces almost at a yearly level is to deal with flooding and such disasters arising from heavy rainfall. And over the years, it's led to a lot of destruction in terms of human and other, resources of the country. Now, how have we responded over the years to the issues of floods and flooding? Sometimes these floods have arisen as a result of heavy rainfall. At other times, because of certain other activities of humans.
Well, we will look at the lesson learned on the previous disaster we have experienced, like in 2010, 2012. We will look at what we are doing right now. Right now, the government of His Excellency, our President Muhammadu Buhari, we got it right to a certain extent. The chairman of NEC on 18th of July 2018, we are able, first of all, His Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, went around the states that were really affected with all this flood. And he had a sort of NEC meeting which comprises of the governors, and they tried to put a formula on the ground, which means we are shifting from post-disaster relief method. We are now shifting to a situation that we are going to mitigate, we are going to prevent any form of flood disaster. And the key thing in here is that there is a committee being set up. Those committee will go around the state, we identify the projects that need to be done in each of these states that will prevent flooding, that will improve our damming system, that will improve our canalization system. And if they identify that kind of project, the states will bear 30% of the cost value of the project, the Federal Republic will bear 30%, and the Presidential Committee will bear 40%. You see, with that committee, we'll be able to evaluate, monitor what we are doing. And at the federal level, again, we've come up with a sort of workshop that is going to create a sort of awareness, sensitize our people what they need to do, which means we are building the resilience to the grassroots in such a way that we need to give them public education. We need to build the capacity of our emergency response system. Look at what happened at Kogi now. Kogi have raised a sort of early warning now that those people that are living around the floodplain area that are vulnerable to flood disaster, that they should move from the place. Look at what is happening in Lagos State. Lagos State have built a relief center that whenever you are prone to an hazard that could lead to a disaster, you will move. They have a lot of emergency responders that could assist in moving. And again, the government is coming up in such a way that we will review the plan. We will improve on our preparedness. And again, there's going to be a sort of enforcement. There are a lot of issues that causes flood, which include people erecting or constructing building on waterways. They will not allow free flow of water. Again, look at our channelization. People will be dumping refugees in their gutters. They will block the gutters. They will not allow free flow on it. So our enforcement aspects agent will work on this. And our media, which is part of what I'm doing right now, our media, we will create a sort of sensitization, we create a lot of awareness, and we will ensure to keep on telling people that disaster management is everyone's business. All of us have to work together as a team.
All right. It's good that you've mentioned the shift in focus to, prevention of this. And talking about flooding, you've just enumerated some of the causes of flooding. People build across waterways, they dump refuse in drains and things like that. Now, you have lots of experience in this because let's use Lagos, for instance. It's a perennial issue of flooding in Lagos. And yet, you still keep seeing buildings being put up in flood-prone areas, people building across gutters, dumping of refuse, and this is a year in, year out thing. Let's look at Lagos, for instance, and all the efforts that have been put in. And one key thing that is always talked about is the attitude of citizens. How have you been able to, or what is the way in trying to change people's attitudes? I mean, you drive around most Nigerian streets, you see people drive around, they toss litter from their cars, people toss all kinds of things, used bottles, cans into drains, gutters, waterways. No one cares. Refuse builds up. How are you trying to change people's attitudes in the first place to allow what we call the free flow of water?
Okay, let's look at it this way. In Lagos aspect, what we did really was that we tried to sensitize our people. We have the agency like National Orientation Agency going all about from the local governments to the state level, creating, sensitizing our people, what they need to do, what they don't need to do. Now, look at the wastage disposal. The government itself has improved the way people dispose their waste materials. They really improve on that. Now, the key thing in there, look at the enforcement aspect of it. That look, if you don't have proper plan, if you don't have approval, they will go in and bulldoze the structure from preventing the structure that was erected to prevent free flow of water. We have the building controlling agency doing that. And again, they've appointed a sort of special advisor on drainage system. So before before we started expressing the raining season, they started doing what we call deslating of the channels. So they improve in what we call the channelizations of our sewage and the drainage. Now, the key thing in there that we need to really appreciate in there is that the non-governmental agencies, the governmental agencies, the public are working as a team. And that is the way to go about it. Both people at the local and the state level, agencies of government, they have to fine-tune their roles and responsibility. They have to discharge their responsibility adequately, effectively, and efficiently to achieve the results. It is a teamwork, and that is how we can achieve result here, and that is what they are doing here. And those people that are prone, that are living in the flood-prone area, that they don't have relatives that they can stay with, the state has provided a relief camp in the 3 senatorial districts. We have one in Agbowa, we have one in Godo. Well equipped that people can stay in, and the emergency people, they're on the ground, and every year we keep on fine-tuning it. Like this year now, the meteorological people agency has predicted what is going to happen. This is they have given us seasonal rain predictions about what is going on. The hydrological service agency, they've predicted what is going to happen. So with that early warning given into the domain, they started working, and National Emergency Management Agency have conducted a stakeholders meeting informing the people about what is really on the ground. And right now, the federal government is now saying that the state itself, the local government itself, should be in the driver's seat of ensuring effective and efficient management of all this.
All right, it's a good thing we mentioned, well, the early warning systems, but again, let's look at some of the challenges, particularly at states levels and states across the country. It's a rainy season once more. You have the agencies, as you said. NIMET has issued its predictions. The Hydrological Services Agency has also issued warnings about flooding. And this happens every year. But some of the challenges that have been noticeable in the states particularly is, take for instance, in areas where the people's occupation demands that they stay close to riverbanks, and these rivers are prone to swelling their banks during heavy rains. Yes, alternative accommodation is provided for them. But the key factor is the people always say, take for instance fishermen. Say, we're basically fishermen. If you take us to the hinterland, how do we continue with our occupation? For those who are farmers, they stay close to where their crops will get adequate water supply. You take them to the hinterland, where are we going to farm? And you also have situations where people have said, look, when we move, we cannot guarantee the safety of our belongings. Now, how do you begin to address these challenges, particularly for those whose occupation, whose life depend on areas that you can now call flood-prone areas?
There's no doubt about that. It's one of the main challenges that we are encountering now. In fact, some people will even expatiate and inform us that, oh, our ancestors has lived in this place. This is what my great-great-grandfather has been doing. And that's where the media comes in. That's where the public education comes in. That's where all hands has to be on the ground. That's where we've moved in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, the State Ministry of Agriculture, to come and assist in this thing. Because there's no doubt about that the mentality of our people is very important in this. And what do? What we did as a government is that we try to put in public education, sensitization, and awareness, trying to enlighten them that, look, this thing, what you experienced those years, the way the dam have been filled those years, is not as it is now. There's a lot of climatic change which affect globally. It affects all countries. That, look, the depth of our dam, the excessive rainfall is very high due to a lot of climatic change. That, look, you have to key in. It's because you have life. That's when you can walk. But if you lose your life, life goes on. You won't be able to walk. You will lose a lot of your things. And the government itself trying to support. That's where the support aspects of the government now come in. And that's what we are doing.
Now, with the natural disasters, okay, so far it's not been, apart from flooding, we've also had cases of landslides. People like to call it landslides, but others will tell you that no, this is not the kind of landslide which, you know, is recognized globally. They tend to see it as activities of humans that have now caused, you know, problems for the landscape, either by overgrazing, by the felling of trees, and now exposing the topsoil to effects of, you know, heavy rainfall. People no longer care. And so when it rains heavily, there's nothing to hold the earth. How do you respond to all this?
Well, the way the government responded to this, again, we move again to changing of our attitude, orientation, championing reforestation, planting trees everywhere, carrying people along, and ensuring there's a law in place, enforcement of law, putting laws in place, and building a robust plan to ensure that deforestation do not occur in any area. You see, it is a big problem that all of us has to work together as a team. We realize that is a big challenge, and believe me, we are trying to be on top of that challenge. We are trying to allow people to see the disadvantage and the advantage, and to see how the advantage is far more than the disadvantage. This is what we are doing, and we are winning.
All right. Now let's come to the other aspects which are basically in our cities today. Building laws. Those happen to be important in ensuring that cities are built in such a way as not to create problems for either flooding or, for instance, another that we have had to face, fire disasters. In many parts of Nigeria today, yearly you hear of fire disasters, especially in marketplaces. And people are wondering, what is it that we cannot manage our markets? There's hardly any year that you don't hear about 10 or 15 fires in large markets. What are we doing in terms of enforcement of building regulations and codes, and even materials that are used for construction?
Well, let's look at the fire services. You will discover that our fire services has greatly improved. We have what we call sophisticated equipment that we can combat any form of fire anywhere. Again, we've recruited men, capable men that could operate digital equipment to fight fires. Not only that, we now carry out sensitization everywhere, especially in our market. Today, we have a market committee that the fire services always go in there to educate them what they need to do. We have put a ban in such situation that you'll be putting petroleum inside a jerry can, and you'll be using a small generator that is not far from the petroleum you put in a jerry can. These are part of the public enlightenment that we are doing. That look, these are things that you need to do, and you need to do it rightly. Secondly, we've already advised, create awareness, public enlightenment for them not to use cheap materials, and there are some government agencies that are enforcing that the cheap materials that could easily conduct fire anywhere are being looked into. You see them, they will join one wire from the other. In such doing, they are prone to fire. You will see them owning their lights. When they close, they will leave their lights on, they switch it on. In such a situation, we are creating awareness. Not only that, you will discover that a lot of our markets now that are being built, you normally have a mini fire service station not far from that area. So again, we tend to look at the preventive aspect of this. We tend to fine-tune our response. We tend to have a robust plan, holistically plan to respond. And today in Nigeria, most of the states now have emergency number. In Lagos State today, we have a toll-free emergency number 767. Federal Capital Territory is now expressing emergency number 1112. So you will see that as a government itself, we are carrying all the load. We are giving people public enlightenment. We show clear ownership and political will to ensure that fire did not occur in our markets.
Speaking of emergency numbers, that has always been a sore point where in so many places you do not have, for instance, an internationally accepted emergency number, a call center. It's only of recent that is beginning to come up, and it's not applicable to all. There are other, aspects of disaster management which should key into a general emergency call number, and those are still missing. Is this still work in progress?
It's still work in progress. We finished with Lagos State. The Lagos State one even have a call center. They even move. They also have a sub call center everywhere in Lagos now. Now the FCT has joined that. The FCT now, we now have 112, and some of the states is going to key into it. And one thing that we need to appreciate in Nigeria today, one of our key agencies, which is the Federal Road Safety Corps, they have emergency number, and that emergency number is 122. That if you are in Ondo State, if you are in Sokoto State, if you are in Maiduguri State, if you call that 122, it goes to the emergency center, and they have nexus with all the key stakeholders that are managing emergency. So we have something in place, and we are fine-tuning it, we are improving on it every day, every minute, every hour, because safety of life and property is one of the key things of this administration.
It's a good thing you mentioned about the Road Safety Corps and its activities, its emergency call numbers, and of course you also talked about when we were considering fire disasters, the issue of using petrol indiscriminately and so that brings us to one other issue that we always grapple with in Nigeria, and that's petrol fires, petrol tanker fires. And these have occurred and taken so many lives and properties of Nigerians, and it would seem that we're having a situation that we cannot cope with year in, year out. Petrol tanker fire disasters. How do we cope that?
We are going to cope, and we are coping. Firstly, if we look, let's start with this. If we look our emergency responders now, we've improved on how to respond to any form of petrol mishap in here now. We have a lot of sophisticated equipment. We have a lot of people that are trained to respond to it. Now, if you look at the law guiding it, we've put a lot of laws in place that look, when you want to transport any petroleum products, there are certain criteria that you need to meet. We've called a lot of stakeholders, no-paying stakeholders. We've educated our people the basic things that they need to do. We are appealing again that they need to key into this. Apart from that, there are people that are law enforcement agents that are on the ground to ensure their compliance. Again, the federal government has started working on the railing system, which is the key, which is going to ensure that all these trailers that are transporting petroleum will be using the railing system. And you can see that our transportation in terms of the railing system, we are improving on it every day. And I'm sure by the time we finish on this, all will be settled.
Now let's come to this issue, because no matter how much you educate people, well, disasters will still occur from time to time. And the key here is the response. There are challenges in responding to situations, and these are known by almost everyone. How respond if you have the experienced and qualified trained personnel to respond to emergency situations, be they in terms of disaster, building collapse, and that's another aspect we have been living with year in, year out, buildings collapsing everywhere. Let's first talk about the response system. How quickly people get to sites of disasters, how well trained are respondents, because you do know, of course, that yes, Nigerians are very sympathetic people. Something happens and people who have little or no knowledge of how to take care of victims are on the scene, sometimes compromising the safety of the very victims, the same victims they're trying to assist. How have we addressed this?
Okay, let's look at this. Do we have institutions to take care of this? Yes. what is the institution doing? The institution we have in place is National Emergency Management Agency. And the National Management Agency has zonal offices. Not only do they have zonal offices, they have operational units all over the Federal Republic. And they have good equipment in it. Now, what do they normally do every month, quarterly? They conduct workshop. They tend to have stakeholders meeting, because when you are talking about disaster management, it's multi-resources, multidisciplinary, multidisciplinary, and multi-stakeholding. And National Emergency Management Agency, as an agency that coordinates all this, they normally have fillers from the grassroots to the top. They conduct workshops, they conduct stakeholders meetings, and with this, they're able to fine-tune their plan. So there's a plan in place how to respond, which makes the response to be effective and efficient. In all the states, they have what we call State Emergency Management Agency at the state level. Now, and there is a coordination, effective coordination between the State Emergency Management Agency and the zonal NEMA office and the headquarters at Abuja. Now, the state SEMA itself, which is at the state level, State Emergency Management Agency, now it saddles to coordinate effectively, efficiently emergency in their state. And they too have stakeholders. For example, in Lagos State, whenever there's any form of emergency, when we are called in, we have the fire services, we have the last mile, we have the ambulance services, we have the SEMA. Now, all these people, their roles and their responsibility are well defined. And the key thing that we need to appreciate, that we have really moved from post-disaster relief method, is that all these operational people conduct what we call simulation exercises, which means before any disaster, they will create a scenario, and all of them will respond, and they will fine-tune it. They will see where they need to improve on it, on how to improve on it. And with this, it makes the emergency response in the Federal Republic of Nigeria effective and efficient, well coordinated, and a teamwork. It's different from those days that we work in silos, that the fire services will be working on their own, the ambulance services will work on their own. It's not like that again. For example, when there is a scene, let me create a scenario for you. When there is an accident, a multi-accident, it involves about 5 vehicles. Immediately they are getting to the scene. The people in there, the first responder in there, we call all his team, we call all other people that are important in managing that. Not only that, they will be informing the hospital with their radio that, oh, look at this scenario. We have about 5 or 10 people that are involved in the accident. They will be communicating with the hospital. The hospital will be ready to handle the patient. And when they are transporting the patient are being transported by advanced mobile hospital. What do we mean by advanced mobile hospital? Which means as you are transporting or evacuating the patient, you can be treating the patient alone. You can be doing the minor surgery. You will be monitoring all the basic indicators like airways, the blood circulation. There are certain equipment in there. With that, you will discover that morbidity, mortality that is associated with all these disasters has been greatly reduced. And the people will be highly sensitized. The people will be informed about what is going on. Instead of them saying, oh, there are about 20 people that have died in the scene, they will know accurately what happened. If you look at the bomb blast that occurred in January 27, 2001, the key thing, what causes our major problem is dissemination of information. People died because they don't have the right information about what happened. Today, that can't happen again. We have a proper channel to disseminate information about any form of emergency. Today, we work in a teamwork, well coordinated, under one incident commander. Today, we know what to do at the right time.
Part of the issues associated with responding to disasters and emergencies, of course, would include access to medical facilities and treatment. And here, you know, even ambulances and hospitals being highly equipped. And the other key aspect, search and rescue. But let's start off with the ambulance services. Are you comfortable, so to speak, with the level of ambulances that we have? I mean, yes, people should, there are times people would say, look, we need to have more emergency response systems, particularly ambulances in place to transport people. What is the situation on ground now?
Well, it's better than before, but we can still improve on it. Today, when we started the ambulance services in Nigeria in the 27 March 2001, we don't have ambulances placed in strategic places. But today, we have ambulances. Go to Lagos, we have ambulances placed in strategic places all over Lagos State. And the Federal Road Safety Corps has a medical corps in their system, that they have ambulances placed in strategic places all over Nigeria. We will improve on that. And today, the Nigerian Medical Association, the Nigerian Medical Council is working with NEMA to create an environment that they will be able to treat emergency or victims of emergency or disaster. So it's a thing that we are working on, is a thing that every hour we need to improve on it. And look at it. Those days, we normally use Peugeot to do our ambulances. We move to urban. But if you look at our what we call mobile advanced ambulances today, you can perform life-threatening operation in there that you can take care in there. We have personnel that are well taken care of pre-hospital care, which we call the pre-hospital care. Okay. So we have personnel that can handle that. We are improving, and I'm sure we will continue to improve on what we have.
It may be a lot better at the federal level, but again, there's always the challenge of coordination at the state levels, especially for states that are always complaining of scarce resources. And sometimes you find that such matters are not on their priority list. And we're even taking this down to the local governments, where access to proper medical facilities might be a little bit challenging. What is the coordination? What's the level of the federal authorities coordinating with states, particularly in owning these response systems and keying into them?
That's one of the key issues that we want to address by this workshop that we are doing across the states. We are going to create a sort of awareness why they need to put resources into it. We are going to ensure that they have plan in place. We are going to ensure that we fine-tune what they are doing, and we are going to ensure that there is a effective and efficient communication between the state, the local, and the federal level. And that is why that Act 50 of 1999 directed all states to have what we call State Emergency Management Agency. And also, it directs the states and each local government to have what we call Local Emergency Management Committee in place. With this, all of us are going to work hand in hand. And if you look at the National Disaster Risk Plan being developed by NEMA in conjunction with the UNDP, they are coming out with a robust plan that all the 3 tiers of government will work as a team, and they will realize that disaster management again is business of everyone, that the safety of life and property is very paramount to this administration. And the key value in there is that whenever any disaster occurs, before it occurs, you will see His Excellency Professor Yemi Oshibajo going everywhere to see at first hand what is really going on. And we are coming up with risk mapping, risk resources, effective and efficient management of disaster in federal level, state level, and local level.
All right. As of today, you head the task force ECOWAS early warning and response mechanisms in Nigeria. Tell us about that and what this body does.
Well, the body was conceived by the 48th meeting of all the ECOWAS country. The key important here is that to give early warning before any form of emergency occur, any form of things that threaten human existence, to ensure that at the local, state, and at the federal level, the preventive aspects of disaster is quickly looked into before it becomes disaster, so that greatly we'll be able to reduce morbidity, mortality that is associated with it. We want people to be aware of the danger they are exposed to. We want people to be able to do mitigating, to put on mitigating effort before this hazard turns to disaster, and if this disaster occur, to greatly reduce this the impact of the disaster on anybody. That is the case.
How much has this body impacted on this same issue within Nigeria and across member countries? What's the level of collaboration that you have?
The collaboration is very effective. We'll be working with institutions. We'll be working with National Emergency Management Agency. We'll be working with the Federal Ministry of Health. We'll be working with the NIMNET. We'll be working with key organizations. And will be the most important thing here, which is very good for everybody, is sharing of information, lesson learned around this disaster, so that we'll be able to plan, we'll be able to prepare, so that our response will be effective and efficient, and we'll be able to work on people orientation towards disaster.
Now, talking about international cooperation, sometimes even with the ECOWAS bodies, you find that you would share boundaries with countries that are not part of ECOWAS, for instance, and whose activities can impact on your own country. I'm using an example as the yearly release of water. That's going back to flooding now.
Yes.
From other countries outside Nigeria, for instance, release of water from the Lagdo Dam, which always creates issues in the northeast. What's the level of international cooperation that you have as a government? What kind of cooperation and exchange of information do you have with other neighboring countries as to ensure that your early warning systems are, more effective, especially in...
Well, there's no doubt about that our collaboration and our cooperation is very effective and efficient. Before they could release any water from that dam, they could have informed us. We could have disseminated the information, and that is what the Nigerian hydrological service agencies quickly release a early warning that they are releasing something from so because they've got information. We now share information. We now sit down at the round table how to mitigate, to prevent any form of hazard before it becomes a disaster. So it is an effective and efficient collaboration.
Enforcement. Yes, you can carry out all the enlightenment that you want to, but there would still be people whose activities or institutions whose activities will not be in tandem with what we're talking about. Would you suggest stiffer penalties, enforcement of regulations, as to deal with those matters where it is, the activities of humans that lead to these disasters?
Let me be emphatic and assure the citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, we will not compromise safety of life and property. Is the key of this administration. So we will use everything. All our agency are tantamount with this, that safety of life and property is one of our key priorities. And we will use everything to ensure that we achieve that. If anybody did not take a proper approval and erect or construct a building on a free flow of water, it will be removed. Because you are threatening the existence of the people in that locality. No matter how rich you are, no matter how influential you are, we will not compromise the safety of life and properties of citizenry of Nigeria in any part of the country. The only key thing here is that let us know if you are facing certain crises in your area and you think that one level of government is trying to cover up, you can escalate the information to this next level. If you think you that level did not tackle it very well, which I doubt, you can escalate it to another level. We have more than 15 emergency managers that monthly they will always review their plans, and under the umbrella of National Emergency Management Agency, we all come together, we review what we are doing, and I'm sure you will get results.
Now, the quality of rehabilitation for those who unfortunately end up as victims of disasters. Yes, you have NEMA goes around and distributes certain relief, what we have now called relief materials. But what on a national scale is the policy regarding how to provide quality rehabilitation for victims of disasters? Some who may have lost means of livelihood, or who may, as a result of that disaster, lost the grounds for which they can continue to provide for themselves. What is the quality of putting back people on their feet and ensuring that sometimes you have whole villages are ravaged by floods, for instance? How do you begin to provide and mitigate the effects of such disasters on citizens?
Okay, when you look at it holistically, we've put a lot of things in terms of the mitigation, prevention. And when you look at the response, rehabilitation, reconstruction, we have the commission. We have the Presidential Flood Commission that is handling it. Apart from what the National Emergency Management Agency is doing in terms of both the medium and the long term. The government has come up with, for example, in the Northeast, the government have come up with a presidential committee that is looking at rehabilitation, reconstruction. We are working with World bodies, World banks. We are working with United Nations to ensure rehabilitation, reconstruction, reintegrations of our people back to their communities. These are things in place. And the key thing that you need to really appreciate about what this government is doing, we've taken clear ownership, we've given political will, and we are carrying our people along. We are carrying people from the grassroots along together, which means it's not that we just go to America or go to Russia and import certain idea in there and put it there. What we are doing with their livelihood will allow them to have a say in it. That this is what the government is doing. Before we put it down, all of them make a contribution. Till the world level, you make a contribution. That do you agree with this? Can it achieve results? We will carry out public enlightenment. People will say it before implementation. And when it's being implemented, we always look at the rates is growing. We always look at the level it is. And then we always carry out what we call town hall meeting. That even the president will come to the town hall meeting, that you will be free to ask questions about what is going on in your locality, about what is going on in your state. So we are not doing it as an elephant project. Okay. We are doing it in reality. And because we convince ourselves that we are ready to serve our people to the last level.
Yeah, you're an advisor on technical advisor on risk management and disaster. But one issue which we would want to, as we begin to wind down, is the question of the insurgency in the northeast of Nigeria, which has led to massive humanitarian crises. In other words, people are displaced, as a result of the activities of insurgents. And this, of course, is a sitting time bomb, as everyone has recognized, that can lead to huge disasters in the land. Humanitarian crisis, as we said. How have you been able to impact on planning and rehabilitation of these unfortunate Nigerians who have had to be thrown away from their place of...
There is no doubt about that we sympathize about the situation that is on the ground. But when this government came in, we take clear ownership and political will. We ensure what we call today Buhari Plan. We created awareness about where we are going is clear on us. What is clear on us is that security of our people, we will not compromise it in any form. And with that, we redirect our security agencies, the police, the military, both Air Force, Naval, and the military aspect of it. Now, we move down to the grassroots to ensure what they are doing, what we need to do, how we need to help them. We created a commission to really look into rehabilitation, reintegration, reconstruction of the place. And you can see that with that in place, you can see the growth in 112 local governments that were affected. The National Emergency Management Agency and apparatus or parastatals on the federal government has done what we call food intervention, which is going on in 112 local governments, and it's effective and efficient. The nutritional challenges that they have in there has been greatly looked into, and it has greatly been reduced by this food intervention. If you look at the health challenges that they are having, like the cholera, the marasmic kwashiorkor that they are experiencing, has greatly reduced because the Federal Ministry of Health and the State Ministry of Health in that local government and in the state has taken care of it. They are really looking into it. They've improved on the primary health care of that 112 local government, and you can see that day in, day out, all the criteria that could cause challenges, that could threaten the human safety in that area are highly being looked into. Look at the education aspect. In fact, His Excellency have constructed a school that those people that become orphan during the insurgency will be accommodated in that school, and they will be properly trained. So in terms of the educational system in that 112 local government that were affected by insurgency, we are really looking into it. The international communities are also assisting us. The UNICEF are assisting us, and we are doing our best on it. There's no doubt about that, there will be pocket challenges here, there, and there, but we are really on the ground. We can improve on what we are doing because it's clear on us that it's a big challenge, but we are really on top of those challenges.
Now, from the experience so far, what have we been able to draw by way of lessons from the international management of risks, disasters, and emergencies from other parts of the world that have had to cope with doing this? In fact, in worse situations than Nigeria, what are the lessons we've drawn? You see,
the key lesson here is that people perception is very matter in disaster management. You can have all the policy in place, you can have the plan in place, you can have the equipment in place. The people perception about the challenges that they are exposed to, the people orientation about all this is very important, and that is why we are going down the grassroots to change their perception, to educate them, to give them a proper orientation to ensure and keep on emphasizing that disaster management is everyone's business. And when you are coming to the institution, we have to work hand in hand to tell them that you can't work alone, you can't work in silo head to achieve results. You must share information. We must work better together to achieve the result, and we must realize that all what we are doing is for the citizenry of Nigeria, and that the type of government that we are operating is government of the people, for the people, and by the people, and it is people oriented, and disaster management is people oriented procedure.
Dr. Femi OKE-OSANYINTOLU, Senior Technical Advisor on Disaster Risk Management in the Presidency. It's been interesting talking to you. Thanks for coming on this program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that's our program today. We thank you for watching. Next week, we'll reach you again on One on One. I am Cyril Stober. Bye for now.